If you are still constantly raging, complaining, criticizing, and ruthlessly hunting for everyone else's flaws, if you are desperately trying to prove to the room that you are the absolute best, or, conversely, if you are paralyzed by suffocated by anxiety, constantly feeling insecure and unworthy, if you are aggressively isolating yourself, dodging daily activities, and retreating from social connections, if you exhibit any of these brutal symptoms, it is highly likely that a deep, suffocating inferiority complex is festering inside of you. And this exact insecurity is the very thing violently derailing you from the path to discovering the true meaning of your life. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Book Distiller, the channel dedicated to sharing elite knowledge and comprehensive personal development through phenomenal books. Today, I am going to share with you a masterpiece of individual psychology by the legendary Austrian psychologist Alfred Adler. The book is called What Life Could Mean to You. This is a classic, but it is highly academic, deeply technical, and absolutely not an easy read. However, I firmly believe that once you decode it, you will get the rare opportunity to stand face to face with your true self. Most importantly, through the core philosophy of individual psychology. You will uncover the direct, lethal connection between your inferiority complex and the ultimate meaning of life, allowing you to discover your authentic core values. In today's video, I am going to distill the absolute most elite, raw truths from this book. Let's dive in. Imagine a kid suffering from rickets, ugly, and slightly hunched. His academics were pathetic. He was always dead last in his class and ruthlessly compared to his handsome, multi-talented older brother. Those crushing conditions forced him to live in profound insecurity. Yet, that exact same kid eventually weaponized his inferiority to become a doctor of psychology and evolved into one of the three most dominant titans in the history of psychology. The man who started at the absolute bottom of inferiority and achieved supreme superiority. That man was Alfred Adler. Adler had a brutal, miserable childhood. He was unloved, possessed, frail health, nearly died of pneumonia twice, watched his younger brother die when he was just 4, and was run over by a car twice. With a childhood saturated in that much trauma, according to Sigmund Freud's deterministic psychoanalysis, he was mathematically guaranteed to have a miserable, broken adult life. But was that actually the case? Using his traumatic early experiences as fuel, Adler resolved to become a doctor to save children who shared his fate. He initially fell in love with psychoanalysis and became Freud's student. But the deeper he researched, the more he realized that Freud's core theories like childhood trauma and cause and effect determinism were fundamentally flawed. So, he walked away and forged his own empire, individual psychology. Later, Carl Jung, who was initially Freud's biggest supporter, also publicly dismantled Freud's theories. Ultimately, these three, Manfred, Adler, and Jung, formed the big three titans of modern psychology. Individual psychology aggressively contradicts psychoanalysis. It dictates that what a person experienced in the past is irrelevant. What matters is how that individual subjectively perceives and assigns meaning to those past experiences. For example, we usually think we dislike someone because they have toxic, annoying flaws. However, individual psychology violently flips the script. It argues that because you have already decided you want to avoid a relationship with this person to protect yourself from getting hurt, you actively hunt for a laundry list of their flaws to justify hating them. Obsessively magnifying someone else's flaws is a highly subjective act. Why am I breaking down individual psychology first? Because this concept to teleology purpose-driven nature of individual psychology is the absolute operating system of this entire book. Before you read it, you must understand this. Equipping yourself with this mental model will make reading exponentially more effective. It is a hypercritical step. If you want to learn more about mental models, you can check out the book, The Secret to Being a Genius. I'll leave the link right here and in the description. Inferiority makes you misunderstand the meaning of life. The feeling of inferiority is the starting point of superiority. Adler asserted a brutal fact. Every single one of us harbors deep-seated insecurities in our souls. We feel inferior about our physical appearance, our pathetic income, our mediocre jobs, our lack of education, or our poverty. Take a friend with a modest height who shoves 4-centimeter lifts into his shoes every single day. When taking a group photo, he secretly stands on his tiptoes. That behavior physically manifests a deep insecurity about his height. But is it wrong? Is it something to be ashamed of? Absolutely not. Historically, the vast majority of us massively exaggerate the dark side of inferiority. We hide our weaknesses in the shadows, completely terrified that others will expose our flaws. But Adler tells us that a person's life is fundamentally a relentless process of overcoming inferiority and chasing superiority. Inferiority is completely normal. You do not need to be ashamed of it. In fact, he argued that all human civilizations developed purely because of inferiority. And this exact insecurity becomes the raw fuel for our progress. Look directly at Adler's life, and this truth becomes blindingly obvious. A great poet once said that nature locks man in darkness and forces him to forever crave the light. Because we crave to overcome the feeling of being lesser. We aggressively grind to improve ourselves. However, if you lack the proper strategy, you will be utterly destroyed by your own insecurity. Suppose a kid grows up in extreme poverty, constantly despised by others. He grows up deciding he must hoard massive amounts of money by any means necessary, even if that money actually holds zero real meaning for him. Or, consider a child whose parents constantly compare him. Look at the neighbor's kid. He's a top student. What is wrong with you? Over the years, this kid grows up with a hyper-toxic competitive streak, competing for grades in school, and ruthlessly competing for status at work. Adler had a patient named Margaret who obsessively targeted married men. Even more terrifying, she poisoned multiple women just to steal their husbands. When Adler audited her psychology, he discovered that Margaret was an abandoned child with a small, slightly deformed body. The reason she could be so ruthlessly evil was that only by stealing someone else's husband could she feel a twisted sense of superiority. Her deep inferiority complex made her crave validation from the outside world, ultimately driving her down a path of pure criminality. You see, feelings of helplessness make people feel inferior to their fate. If channeled down the right path, inferiority becomes a massive lever that propels a person to elite success. The prime example is Adler himself. Adler called these normal insecurities feelings of inferiority. But, conversely, if a person derails while chasing superiority, they will inevitably plunge into catastrophic mistakes and completely obliterate the meaning of their life. In individual psychology, this toxic, destructive manifestation is called an inferiority complex. There is nothing wrong with a feeling of inferiority. The inferiority complex is what destroys you. People infected with an inferiority complex constantly blame others. They claim that the weaknesses they cannot control are the fault of their parents, their environment, an unfair life, or outsiders. The act of blaming is their pathetic attempt to compensate for their insecurity. But not being as good as someone else does not mean you are fundamentally lesser than them. Subjectively weaponizing your inadequacies leads to an obsession with feeling defeated. Conversely, extreme overconfidence is also a glaring symptom of an inferiority complex. Some people genuinely believe they are superior to everyone else, constantly flexing and exaggerating their achievements and capabilities. However, they are forced to do this merely to mask the weak, helpless, and dependent emotions buried inside them. At this point, their inferiority complex mutates into a superiority complex. These two complexes coexist and overlap. Beware of extreme insecurity and extreme overconfidence. If you let these complexes dictate your life, they will drag you into catastrophic errors, trigger psychological disorders, and completely erase the meaning of your life. You must aggressively audit yourself and observe those around you to see if they carry these complexes. It is hypercritical. Here are the red flags indicating an inferiority complex: constantly feeling unsafe, defeated, and unworthy, relentlessly comparing yourself to others, withdrawing from daily routines and social interactions, being prone to anger, anxiety, frustration, hostility, insomnia, or depression. And what about those with a superiority complex? They constantly hunt for attention and validation, are hypersensitive to criticism, and frequently tear others down. They obsessively talk about their own achievements, relentlessly nitpick everyone else's flaws, and are aggressively, toxically competitive. If you spot these signs, audit yourself immediately. It is time to look inward, deeply understand the inferiority festering in your soul, and navigate your way out, or encourage others to seek professional help. Inferiority has been with us since childhood. Adler's research identified two types of inferiority complexes. First, primary inferiority. It originates in childhood due to feelings of helplessness or being compared to others, cementing into an inferiority complex in adulthood. Second, secondary inferiority. This strikes adults when they fail to achieve their subjective goals for safety and success. As a result, the residual emotions from their childhood amplify, triggering a full-blown inferiority complex. You will find that inferiority complexes are usually driven by a chain of events triggered by childhood, memories, and symptoms. The author concluded that there are three types of people highly susceptible to these issues: children with congenital defects or disabilities. Missing a physical capability causes these kids to withdraw and become highly introverted. They feel isolated and disconnected from the world, so they never learn how to cooperate with others. Severely overpampered children. Because they were overly favored from birth, they effortlessly assume they are the center of the universe. Expect to achieve everything without ever contributing or cooperating. Abandoned or emotionally deprived children. To a child who never experienced love and cooperation, the world is a cold, hostile wasteland. As adults, they assume that everything must be violently fought for. Do you notice the pattern? All of these children share one fatal flaw: a catastrophic lack of the ability to cooperate. According to Adler's compensation mechanism, a person with deep inferiority will do whatever it takes to escape it. But if their subjective perception steers them down the wrong path, they will develop a false sense of superiority. These mistakes will cause them to isolate themselves, act selfishly, fiercely compete, become possessive, or even commit crimes. Conversely, if they compensate correctly, they will achieve true superiority. So, what is the right path? How do we overcome inferiority and achieve elite excellence? Adler stated, "All human problems are problems of cooperation. A person living with an inferiority complex does not know how to cooperate. Consequently, a chain reaction of suffering detonates in their life, and they completely misunderstand the meaning of their existence. So, where does the true meaning of life lie? We often say, a leopard can't change its spots. But Adler violently disagreed. Individual psychology believes that the only reason people refuse to change is because they don't want to sacrifice their insecurities. Change requires accepting uncertainty and confronting brutal hardship. But humans crave stability and ease, so they lack the courage to change. The reason a person chases superiority the wrong way is because they are obsessed with themselves, refuse to cooperate, and ignore the benefit of the community. Therefore, if you must live to achieve something, instead of living purely for your own ego, live for the benefit of the community. If a person can redirect their selfish desires towards social contribution, they are guaranteed to overcome their own limitations. The book drops a profound definition, the ultimate metric to determine if your life has true meaning is whether others find that meaning valuable and shareable. You must understand that no matter who you are or what your profession is, if you want to become elite, go further, and live happier, you must dedicate your entire life to answering one question. What do you need to do to connect with this society? And what do you need to do to be useful to the world? If you don't, it doesn't matter how much money you hoard, how massive your mansion is, how expensive your cars are, or how high your status is, you will always feel empty, lonely, and insecure. As Confucius once taught, the benevolent man is free from anxiety. A person who prioritizes humanity, who genuinely cares for and cooperates with others to solve social problems, will achieve happiness, peace, and find true value in their life. Connect your personal value to the value of society. When you care for and contribute to others, you obliterate your inferiority and achieve authentic superiority. Here is a highly controversial and often misunderstood point in individual psychology. The community interest Adler mentions is exponentially larger than we imagine. It isn't just about caring for other people. It encompasses a connection to humanity, the earth, all living and non-living things, and even the entire universe. It reminds me of the phrase, something bigger than yourself. I firmly believe there is always something greater than ourselves. Therefore, your lifelong purpose and mission, as an individual in society, is to crush your own ego, to contribute to something vastly larger than yourself. Only by forging this connection can we achieve a sense of belonging. That sense of belonging is the most fundamental human desire and the ultimate goal of human life. Returning to the source. From this perspective, the core thesis of this book is learning to weaponize your feelings of inferiority to dedicate yourself to things greater than yourself, thereby discovering true happiness. However, many people dismiss this theory as vague, assuming it's just Adler's imagination. But a master is always a master. His logic is bulletproof. Why was he so absolutely certain that the meaning of life must be based on cooperation and contribution? Because he identified the three inescapable constraints of life that every single human being must confront. Just by being born human, you are forced to face these three unyielding barriers. Career, because we all live on the surface of the earth and rely on the finite resources the globe provides. We must secure an occupation to survive. Society. As long as we are alive, we are connected to those around us. We cannot exist in a vacuum, and all our actions rely on cooperation with others. Love and marriage, because humans must reproduce to maintain the species. Look at the rings exchanged on a wedding day, or the couple bracelets worn by lovers. These are sacred symbols of belonging to each other, but they also mark the milestone where two people must cooperate to build a sustainable, long-term relationship. However, some might say, I don't want to get married, I'm voluntarily single, so how? Am I constrained? There is a brutal reality right now. The rate of young people refusing to marry is skyrocketing, especially in South Korea. As you can see from a 2022 social survey published by Statistics Korea, 60% of people avoiding marriage claim it's because they refuse to share the financial and domestic burden. This fundamentally boils down to an issue of cooperation. Or, deep down, the person obsessed with remaining single is actually harboring a profound insecurity tied to a personal inferiority complex. Unless biochemical technology evolves to the point of creating humans without reproduction, if that day comes, these three constraints will no longer be challenges, but human civilization as we know it will be entirely replaced. Therefore, based on reality, Adler proposed that humanity's ultimate path to salvation is building social interest through cooperation and contribution. However, on the path of cooperation, there is always one massive obstacle: inferiority. If we want to escape all trouble and suffering, we must expose the flawed meaning we assign to our lives through our insecurity. It is our inferiority that forges our lifestyle. The lifestyle Adler refers to is an individual's core personality and character. Adler believed that a person's lifestyle is hardwired by the time they are 4 to 5 years old, meaning the mindset shaped in your earliest years will dictate who you are into adulthood. So, how do we audit our lifestyle to see if it's corrupted? How do we identify our deep-seated inferiority? Let's move to the next section, hunting down the inferiority buried deep inside you. The book drops a brilliant method: rewiring your childhood memories to truly understand yourself. Close your eyes. What is the very first image from your early years that flashes into your mind? Using myself as an example, my first memory is getting lost at 5 years old. I was at a private kindergarten, waiting for my mum as usual. When she didn't show up, I somehow sneaked out to find her, cried in the middle of a crowd, and got lost. 4 years later, even when joking, I still blamed my mum for that. After reading this book, it hit me. That childhood memory followed me into adulthood and fortified my personality. The brutal truth is, I blamed her because I felt abandoned. I desperately craved and expected her attention. This is a textbook manifestation of an inferiority complex, wanting the world's attention. That's why, growing up, I constantly blamed my mum for countless things. I knew I shouldn't live burdened by expectations of others, but reading this book gave me the solid psychological logic to finally understand myself and actually change. My second memory, from when I was about 9, is taking care of and playing with my little sister. It's a beautiful memory, and it further validates Adler's logic. He aggressively encouraged all parents having a second, third, or fourth child to force the older siblings to participate in raising and caring for the younger ones. As a kid, I resented my mum for making me babysit all summer. But today, I am profoundly grateful she gave me that responsibility. It ruthlessly and effectively trained my ability to cooperate. When you close your eyes, you will see both joyful and traumatic memories. They act as a mirror, reflecting whether your psychology is healthy or flawed. You must realize that individual psychology is essentially the process of hunting down the flaws in your ability to cooperate by examining your own childhood memories. Initiating change from family and school education. By now, you can see the massive impact childhood has on all of us. The family, during those early years, is the ultimate forge of a person's lifestyle. And school education acts as the supplementary continuation. Let's tackle the family first. When a mother first holds her baby, she initiates her very first act of cooperation with that child. Whether the mother genuinely loves the child and enjoys holding them becomes hypercritical. A mother who truly loves her child will hold them with ease. Especially during bath time, the baby won't cry, but will Laugh happily. This is pure cooperation. The very first instance of cooperation stems from a mother's genuine love for her child. In reality, there are mothers who are clumsy when holding or bathing their babies. Deep down, these individuals might view the child as an annoying burden. They were never truly ready for motherhood. The greatest gift the universe gives parents is the ability to care for their child from day one. Grinding to earn money is crucial for maintaining the family economy and supporting a new member. But if you sacrifice those early days to build your child's cooperative skills, which also teaches you how to live cooperatively, it is a catastrophic loss. If you love the child and care for them with connection and dedication, your child will absorb that sense of cooperation. Conversely, many parents constantly complain about housework, cooking, helping with homework, complaining about everything on earth. This might happen because, deep down, they believe, I deserve a more exciting life. My life shouldn't be like this. Those complaints just prove one thing: they are desperately seeking their own false superiority. In this environment, the child absolutely cannot learn how to cooperate. Another scenario: if the parents fail to cooperate with each other, they cannot expect their child to learn cooperation. If a father is explosive and controlling the children, will grow up believing marriage is a form of subjugation and slavery. If a mother constantly nags and dominates, the daughter will clone her personality, while the son will live on the defensive, terrified of criticism, waiting for a chance to conquer women. A highly common issue is parents exaggerating their love. You are my flesh and blood. You are my everything. Be extremely careful with this toxic framing. It mutates into ownership. The child will quickly figure out how to hijack the mother's attention. Thinking the mother belongs exclusively to them, they deploy tactics to possess her. The child will throw tantrums, wake up screaming in the middle of the night, wet the bed, or thrash around. They assume that causing chaos forces the mother to their side. It is their only way of proving the mother is theirs. As they grow up, they develop a completely self-centered personality. Adler genuinely desired an educational revolution, where teachers would prioritize individual attention to compensate for flawed family dynamics. But realistically, in today's world, that is highly impracticable. Teachers are overwhelmed, grinding just to keep up with the curriculum. The pressure of lesson planning leaves them exhausted. Giving individual attention is incredibly difficult. But parents are different. Parents can absolutely change if armed with the right knowledge and cooperative methods. Deep down, almost all parents want a better life for their kids. That is why I focused heavily on family dynamics here, hoping all current and future parents will learn how to upgrade themselves. Regarding school education, I will just list a few actionable principles. Strictness and punishment are forbidden. The second you deploy strict punishment, you sever all communication and connection with the child. Teachers must step down and engage students as equals. Genuinely care about their futures. Focus on each child's strengths and help them maximize their unique superiority. Only when a child understands this can they treat others fairly and cooperate without needing to be the class president. Adler believed that authentically connecting with students is the true mission of an educator. Never use the phrase, "You are very smart, but just not very hardworking." Many teachers use this as a soft critique, hoping to motivate the student. But this toxic phrase accidentally triggers a false superiority complex. If the kid thinks they are already smart, why should they work hard? They will never overcome their laziness. The core parenting theories found in the famous book, Positive Discipline, or the relationship frameworks in popular relationship books, all trace their roots back to Adler's individual psychology. You can Read those books first if you want something easier to digest than the masterpiece I introduced today. However, the reality is we learn many practical methods but fail to execute them effectively. Studying Adler's core philosophy is the ultimate way to deeply comprehend the root of the problem. Therefore, I highly recommend you read this book. Final, critical message for today's video. The more you read, the more you travel, the more you learn. The more you realize that absolutely no one has total control over their circumstances. Life is brutally short, humans are fragile, and the three absolute constraints of career, society, and love, marriage, are constantly staring us in the face. We are relentlessly hunting for solutions, never satisfied with the status quo. No matter what happens, humans are forced to struggle and grind. But you must burn this into your brain. Only when we cooperate with others does our struggle become filled with hope and meaning. That struggle is the lifelong journey to discover the true meaning of life within you. You will notice almost all great books guide us toward a kind heart, compassion, and developing love. As Kazuo Inamori advised in A Compass to Fulfillment, we must live with an altruistic heart and learn to give in order to achieve sustainable success and happiness. Escaping the prison of a fixed mindset shows us that we must live for others to break the chains, locking us in misery, and find our true purpose. Adler reaffirms that the ultimate meaning requires stepping over our own ego to live a life of contribution, cooperation, and care for others. If we achieve that, we touch the true meaning of life. What makes What Life Could Mean to You different from other books? It dissects the individual psychology within us to expose exactly why we fail to live for the community and fail to cooperate with our loved ones and society. The root cause is the deep-seated inferiority complex that originates in childhood and haunts us into adulthood. That exact insecurity is what robs us of life's meaning, as Albert Einstein brutally stated. The value of a man should be seen in what he gives and not in what he is able to receive. I hope you and I can both crush our insecurities, discover our authentic value, and become elite operators with hearts that are peaceful, calm, yet overwhelmingly altruistic. Live to the absolute fullest and give more, so that your inferiority becomes the launchpad for your ultimate superiority. Thank you for tuning in. If you extracted value from this video, share it with those who need it. Do not forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to catch my latest drops every week. Once again, thank you, and I will see you in the next videos on the Book Distiller.